So, welcome back, everyone. In uh, previous discussion, we were going through an important aspect of programming language, any programming language, in which we understand that in real world scenario, we take decisions, and sometimes those decisions depend on the condition and accordingly process the information. And we have seen that thing in our previous examples, how to do that thing in a in 3 4 formats. So we divided this, you can say flow control, or you can say the decision making, or control statements. The two concepts we have discussed by merging them together so that you can understand these things uh, better. When we were discussing that thing, we understood the concept of using the code or code reuse functionality. And we also made one statement that that in programming languages it is always promoted that whatever code you have written, you do not repeat it again and again, and you try to use it whenever there is possibility or requirement that you can do it. So code reuse is very important aspect of any programming language, and because of that thing, high level programming languages are being used. Reason is that they have already developed most of the prototypes and their implementations, which you can directly use without implementing those things on your own. So what high level languages provides to you, that they give you freedom, that you should remember only what is to be done, how it is to be done. And if there are certain small things which you will also do in the process to achieve your task, they have already been taken care of by that particular language. And that's why the languages now are becoming very easy to understand. Earlier they were very difficult because things were not that uh, means they were close to hardware, so we were just understanding their syntax and situations, and we were doing lot of things, and the keywords and their combinations and the freedom given to the programmer, they all were creating problems in the development of large scale operating systems or large scale software systems. Now, after discussing if else conditions, switch cases, conditional statements, and the programming construct which provides us the functionality of implementation of for loop, while loop, do while loop. So we come to the next topic, that is called functions. So function is basically an important part of any programming language because it addresses the problem of code reuse. So what happens that when you write your program in a sequence, you are writing instructions, and there is certain there is a task which you always, sometimes it in your program it may be that you always repeat. So I give you one example. Suppose you are writing a matrix program, and in matrix program one task of your program is to take input of the matrix from the user, and next task of your matrix implementation can be printing that matrix. And now you know that there are many functions or many operations which you can perform on your matrix. So you can do what, you can test whether it is a you can write a code in which you can test whether matrix is square matrix or not square matrix. You can write a function to print upper triangular matrix or lower triangular matrix. You can write code or a set of instructions to print the determinant of matrix. You can also write code to print whether matrix is singular or not. You can also write code to print if what is the square of that particular matrix. You can write the code to get the transpose of that matrix. You can write code to multiply each element of the matrix by 2. You can write code means you can do so many processing or modification in your matrix using the code writing. But when you have taken the input and each time you are doing the processing, so next time you do to know that processing, you have to print the matrix or values of the matrix, so that you know that whatever operations you have performed, they are actually being implemented in the matrix and the matrix is getting modified. So here, if you see, if you are writing 20 or 25 matrix related functions, and for each function you have to display the matrix after the modification and before the modification. So that code for displaying the matrix is same in all 25 functions. So what you can do, or 25 codes which you have written. So what you can do is you can take that piece of code out of the code which you have written and create a separate function which can be used again and again. So what you are doing here is you are doing, or you are following the concept of code reuse. So in code reuse, what happens that if you are confirmed that this piece of code will be used again and again, so you don't need to write those line again and again in your code. So what you do, you take that piece of code out and then you create one function and then you call that function again and again. So you have written that code only once, but you are using that code multiple times. So that is the main benefit of the functions in any programming language which we implement. So I hope this concept is clear to everyone and you have understood why we are discussing this function related chapter. So let's come to the discussion in detail format. Okay, so I am giving you this code, very simple code, so that you can understand that. Let's take one triangle, and in triangle what happens that you have three sides and you want to test whether these three sides they can form the triangle or not. So this, and user will enter these things again and again to you, and you have to test these condition again and again. So you have to write this code again and again. So what we are doing, we are taking three inputs representing three sides of triangle, and then we test if these sides form triangle or not. So this code up to this point, 19 line number, we have taken three values a in variable a, b and c, and then we are checking whether a, b and c can form a triangle. So we have this condition from the trigonometry. If three sides can form triangle, then these conditions should be true all at once. Okay, so all the conditions should be true, then only we can say that triangle can be formed from this side or not. So this code I have written here in a simple manner, whatever concept we have used up to this point. But this code can also be written in a better way, in which you can use the same code for any number of user queries, whether the triangles or the values user is giving, they are forming triangle or not. So that is the benefit of writing functions. So what I am doing here is that I have taken that piece of code from here and I have placed it inside this code block. This code block is called function. Okay, so I will discuss this thing, that now you can see that whenever I need to check whether triangle is being formed by three side or not, so I have to call just this function. I don't need to write these 3-4 lines again and again in my code. So that is the benefit of this function concept, and that's why we call that it is providing us code reuse facility. So apart from code reuse facility, it also provide abstraction. So what is an abstraction? Abstraction is basically a concept introduced in object-oriented programming, that you have to show only relevant details to the user, and you have to hide all irrelevant details which you think that user doesn't require. So to understand this thing, you have in your home the electricity fitting. You will see that you only know and you have only have switches. So if you want to if you want to run your fan, then you switch on the corresponding switch of that fan, and then it is running. But you don't know what is happening inside it, and you also don't know what is happening inside the fan. Okay, so this way abstraction is that you only provide relevant detail to the user of that functionality, and all the complexities and the difficult things and the complex situations which happens behind the scene, you hide all those things. So this type of concept, when you are providing the important details or relevant details to the user and hiding irrelevant details from the user perspective, then this concept, if you implement anywhere, this is called abstraction. Code reuse we have discussed, and then we discuss now readability. So if you write this code and again you are writing these lines, or suppose as we were discussing about the matrix program, if you are printing and taking input and you are writing those codes again and again, those set of instructions again and again in your program, so it reduces the readability of your program, because each time you see that there is repetition of the code. So if you take that piece out and then you make it a separate function, so it improve your readability of the program also, because then only you will see that if this function is there, then the task of this function is to check whether that these sides form triangle or not, or the task of this piece of code is to print the matrix only. Okay, so whenever we require to print matrix, we can directly call these values, and we can means we can directly call this function and we can get it printed. Okay, so the readability of the program also improve if we are implementing functions. And then you also get independent module separately, which can be used any number of time anywhere. Okay, so that also give you the freedom that you have written a piece of code which you don't need to write again and again, and because that is a small piece of independent code, it can be used again and again. Okay, satisfying the code reuse functionality. So these are the 4 benefits you get when you start implementing functions. So I will would like to advise you that whenever you see that there is possibility that these tasks can be independently done, or they are independent from rest of the piece of code, so you create one separate function for that thing. This is called good programming practice. So you have to make your code neat and clean, and whenever you see that this piece of code can independently exist, you create function of that piece of code.